Hello neighbors, it's Brad here at eTrailer, and today we're taking a look at installing the CURT Class 1 trailer hitch receiver on a 2022 Honda Civic Hatchback. Now this is what your hitch is going to look like when it's installed, and it's a hidden cross tube, so the only thing that you're going to see is the actual receiver end here and your safety chain loops. And if you're wondering if it works with your sport model and that rear diffuser, as you can see, it does. Now, being an 1.25" receiver tube opening means that it's not going to have as wide a selection of accessories as your 2" by 2", but on a smaller vehicle, sometimes you're limited with just the 1.25" option. So there's still definitely some bike racks, ball mounts, as well as cargo carriers that you can load up here, so you can definitely utilize this hitch quite often. Now, when using your accessories, you're going to keep it in place with a 1/2" pin and clip, which is not included with the hitch. A lot of your accessories will come with one, but if you want to pick up a locking one, that way you can leave your accessories on the vehicle, lock it in place, and know that it's not going to walk away in the hands of someone else. We have plenty of options available here at eTrailer. Now your safety chain loops are nice and open, so if you do plan on pulling a small trailer, your normal S-style will definitely be able to go in there easily, as well as even a larger clevis style to be able to hook up. Now, speaking of towing, you're going to want to adhere to the weight capacities of not only the hitch, but also the vehicle. And being a Class 1, that means your gross trailer weight rating is going to be 2,000 pounds. And that's going to be the weight of the trailer plus the accessories loaded up. You also have a tongue weight rating of 200 pounds, which is going to be the downward pressure that's put on the receiver tube opening. So when you have those suspended accessories like a bike rack or a cargo carrier, you don't want to go over that weight limit. And if you do plan on towing with this vehicle, check the vehicle's owner's manual, see what it's capable of towing, and then compare that with the weight rating on the hitch. Take the lower of those two numbers so you stay safe. Now, when choosing accessories, sometimes you have folding ones and you want to make sure it doesn't make contact with the rear fascia. And also, if you're picking up a ball mount, you want to make sure that it extends out far enough. That way the trailer doesn't make contact with your rear fascia. So from the center of the hitch pin hole to the furthest point of the rear fascia, we're looking right at about 2 inches. And as far as ground clearance goes, we're looking at about 11 inches from the top of the receiver tube opening to the ground. And that's important not only for when choosing accessories to make sure you have that ground clearance, but also if you need to pick up a ball mount, you can determine whether or not you need a rise or a drop to mount up to your trailer. Something to keep in mind when choosing accessories as well is, especially your suspended ones like your bike racks and cargo carriers, as this kind of extends out from the vehicle as you go up an incline, that is going to want to tilt towards the ground. So something to keep in mind, or something to kind of also think about when choosing accessories. If you can get one that raises up a little bit, that'll give you a little bit more ample ground clearance. Now the installation, they rated it a 10 out of 10, and I don't necessarily agree with that. This one isn't that bad. Now, you will be taking off your rear fascia, but as far as taking fascias off vehicles, this is a pretty simple one to do. You are going to be trimming not only a little bit here for the clearance of the hitch, but also a little bit of the bumper support that actually sits on top of where the hitch mounts up. So it seems like a lot, but I'm going to walk you through the installation step by step, and you should be able to knock this out, I would say, within an hour or two. You could definitely do it in your driveway or your garage. So let's go ahead, take a look, and get your hitch installed. For the installation of the hitch, the rear fascia is going to have to come off because it's going to bolt where our factory bumper beam is, which is going to be located behind the rear fascia. So our first step to get the fascia off is going to be going to where our taillights are. There's going to be a plastic cover, and we're going to pry that off. I'm using a plastic trim tool just to kind of make sure that we don't scratch anything during this process. Now, I'm not sure exactly where the clips are, but with the trim panel tool, you can kind of get one spot loose and then pry it out. And it looks like we have just these plastic clips that go in here, and then these ones kind of hold it in on the side. So it seems like prying on this side brought it out pretty easily. And that's going to give us access to the 10mm bolt that we have here. So we'll go ahead and get this removed, and make sure you have a nice spot to keep all your hardware. It's going to make reinstallation a little bit easier. So now we can go ahead and repeat on the other side. Now on each of our wheel wells, we're going to come over here and find that there's 2 Phillips head screws. There's also going to be one that's going to be tucked here where it meets the rear quarter panel. Now it can get a little bit tricky, and you want to make sure you're not rounding these out. So I have a small little ratchet here that I was able to put a Phillips head bit in, and that's going to make it a little bit easier. So we'll go ahead and get these removed. And the one that's tucked up here, if you kind of reach your finger, it's going to be facing vertical, so you can kind of, it's going to be kind of It's a little tricky to find, but we'll go ahead and get this removed as well. And then if you reach underneath, you're also going to find this one under here. So we'll get this removed, and then we're just going to go ahead and repeat the same process on the other side. So now underneath where our rear diffuser goes into this center portion, there's going to be two plastic push pins that we're going to remove. So it's going to be this one here and this one there. And pretty easy, you're going to just pry in between the gap between the center button and that outer ring. And you should be able to get that center section to pop out. Kind of pry that, and then you should be able to get the rest of the clip out. So we're getting ready to take our rear fascia off. I recommend going and grabbing an extra set of hands before doing that. It can get a little bit cumbersome, and also what we're going to do is just take some painter's tape and run it along the edge where the bumper and the rear quarter panel meet. I'm going to put tape on both sides, and that's just going to make it easier to not scratch the vehicle, not only for when we take it off, but putting it back on. If it rubs against here, it's very possible it'll scratch your paint or your clear coat. So we'll just kind of put this up here for some added measure. Now we're going to go ahead and get our fascia removed. So with my extra set of hands, best way to do this is start prying on the side. There's going to be some clips, just kind of pull those back slowly, and then we'll work our way, and then we should be able to get this whole fascia to come off. Now here on our driver's side, we have wiring attached for our sensors. So to get that separated, it should be just a push button clip, and we'll get that separated. So don't pull too far on the rear fascia as you're removing it. You don't want to damage that wire. So now we're going to take our bumper beam off, and our hitch is going to live behind it. So you don't have to take this too far once you remove it. And to get this taken off, it's going to be a 12mm socket. There's going to be 4 on each side. And since there's nothing really supporting it up, what I'm going to do is leave one with a few threads still on it on each side until I'm ready to take this off. We don't want it falling down on us. So let's go ahead, and we'll go ahead and get our hardware removed. So there is a little tab that holds it up. You can see just kind of right here. So it is going to kind of support itself. Just be careful it doesn't fall on you. And now we'll go ahead and grab our hitch. So I have my hardware here next to me, and we're going to need that because this is going to sit here, and I think the tabs might kind of hold it up. I'm going to still support it with my hands. And then I'm going to take my bumper beam, and this is going to go right on top of it. And then we're going to lift this up and at least get one started on each side so it supports itself. And the hardware is going to be just this bolt and a conical tooth washer. Conical tooth washer has teeth on it. You want that to bite into the metal, so just make sure you have it facing the correct way. And then we'll just lift this up a little. Get these to align. This is a little cumbersome by myself, so if you do have that person that help you take that fascia off, you might want to have them hold the other end while doing this. But once I get a few threads started on this side, I can go back and get the other side threaded in as well, and then it's going to hold itself up. Now with both sides started, I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of my hardware in place, and I'm going to just snug them down. This is going to be a 13mm socket to do that. You don't have to get too crazy here. We're going to come back with a torque wrench. Now it did kind of cause a little bit of trouble as far as lining this all up because of that tab. If you need to, you can kind of bend that out of the way, and that way it cinches up a little bit easier. So now we're going to go back with our torque wrench, and using the torque settings found in the instruction manual, we're going to go and torque all these down. Now if you need a torque wrench, we have these available here at eTrailer. You can generally rent them at an auto parts store. And the torque setting is pretty low here, so I tightened mine down with the 3/8 impact. I didn't get too crazy, and it's probably a good thing because the torque setting, again, you don't want to overdo it, that can put stress on the threads and cause damage to the weld nuts. Now before we get the fascia put back on, we're gonna have to do some trimming, and the instructions say, for clearance sake, you can see the reflectors do normally live here. We're gonna notch this out just because that hitch bumped this out a little bit. We wanna make sure that it's not pushing against it and causing damage to the fascia. So I'm just gonna kind of trim this area out here. I'm using a Dremel tool, so we'll go through and just cut both sides. Now because this is now raw metal where we cut, I'm gonna go ahead and just put a little bit of clear coat or some black spray paint just to kind of coat those raw edges so it doesn't turn to rust later on. And we do need to trim the bottom where the rear plastic diffuser is to kind of make room for the hitch to live. And I've used the instruction manual as kind of a reference. I've also kind of measured on the vehicle to make sure that that is spot on. And this will be pretty close. I'm gonna go ahead, cut this out, and then I'm gonna just kind of test fit to make sure that we don't need to trim a little bit more. We can always trim more if we need to, but we want it nice and tight. That way it looks clean. So just using my Dremel, I'm gonna go through and cut this. Now careful, the plastic can get pretty hot here after cutting it, especially with a rotary tool. But I'm gonna go back using the back edge of a knife blade or a file, anything to kind of knock these burrs down. We want it looking nice and clean before we get it mounted up. So now we can get our fascia put back on. Just make sure that you're plugging that clip back in that we unplugged previous. And then it's just going to go back together in the reverse order that we took it all off. With our fascia back in place and everything tightened and torqued properly, our hitch is completely installed. The only thing that you'll have to do now is load up your accessories and start using it. And that was a look and installation of the CURT Class 1 Trailer Hitch Receiver on a 2022 Honda Civic Hatchback.